So there's an interesting story coming from Trump land, which is that Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump's oldest child, oldest son, is now his top political advisor. That since leaving the White House, he's sort of gotten rid of people like Jared Kushner, and now Donald Trump Jr., one of the most insane Trumps, even crazier and more unhinged than his dad sometimes, is apparently the top dog when it comes to giving Trump advice. It notes here, his role extends far beyond operational guidance. In the months since Trump left Washington, Trump Jr., who never worked in the White House and is undeniably the most conservative member of the Trump family, has been steadily influencing his father's political instincts. Aides describe their relationship as notably more affable than Trump's ever was with Kushner, who has taken a break from politics. One of the key ways Trump Jr. has influenced his father is in the GOP's hard-right culture war turn, including a panic against transgender rights that has led to a wave of state legislation targeting trans people. Like this is part of that move. What Donald Trump Jr. is trying to suggest to his dad, even more than when he was president, was that you gotta go hard on the culture war. And I don't know if this is going to work. On the one hand, it seems to be generating a lot of outrage from conservatives. But on the other, I think that all of this focus on Dr. Seuss and Donald Trump Jr. as one of the drivers of this has sort of been happening because Joe Biden's policies, by and large, are fairly popular, and they can only really be reasonably critiqued from the left. Like, there's no legitimate right-wing criticism of Biden, because everything Biden is doing, Trump did worst or didn't do at all. Right? Whereas there are a lot of criticism from the left on the minimum wage, the stimulus not being big enough, the stimulus checks not being big enough, infrastructure not being ambitious enough. Lots of criticisms on the left, not a whole lot on the right. But this is going to be interesting to see, because if Trump Jr., who's unhinged, whenever he's in the media, he's always on the verge of tears, he looks like he's on something half the time, 3/4 of the time. He's on some sort of substance. Let's just put it that way, or something like that, right? Like, let's be clear, he's unhinged. But if this is the direction the Republican Party is going, it could get even crazier than Donald Trump was. And maybe that's a bad thing. It's almost undeniably a bad thing for political discourse, but maybe for the sake of the Republican Party further swirling down the tube, down the drain of irrelevance, it might be a good thing. Because I think Donald Trump Jr. represents a sort of politics that a lot of people aren't going to find palatable. He's just as evil. He's just as crude. He's just as awful. He's just as dirty as his father. But he lacks some of that Trumpian charisma that, whether we like Trump or not, you can't deny exists. So on the one hand, this is pretty terrifying that Donald Trump Jr. is now the most powerful advisor to the most powerful man in the Republican Party, but it might be just the thing that keeps them losing in 2022 and in 2024.